doing it live.
Do it.
Thomas, how are you, man? Long time. We have been trying to make this happen for a while now.
It's been a
Green
minute.
Beret, 12 Way Foundation founder and advocate, entrepreneur. Dude, you are a busy man and you have quite the mission. So today I want to dive in, man. Let's strike while the iron's hot. How did you find yourself in this space?
I did, yeah, involuntarily. Let's put it that way. Definitely did not choose this path. Really wouldn't want to say it chose me either. Just kind of just flopped in my lap. No, so I spent 13 years active duty. The last year and a half or so, I was on my way out of going to med school or trying to go to med school. So doing all the prerequisites, all that stuff. And my final time at first group. And my ETS date happened to span August 23rd, 2021, right? So like 8 days after Kabul fell.
No shit.
So, I'm trying to go to med school. I'm doing all this time prep for the MCAT, which is like an absolute beast of an entry test.
Oh yeah.
So I don't have any time scheduled like after I get out of the Army. Like basically I was planning to, take the MCAT, do all the medical school applications and just kind of move on with my life and go to med school. Right. But, because I have this giant white space on my calendar, as soon as Afghanistan falls, here I am, right time, right place to kind of get involved and kind of take care of the guys who, partnered with us in Afghanistan. And that's pretty much it. That's the story right there, right place and a whole bunch of white space.
And for those that don't understand the significance of who you're trying to help and the name behind and what it means, give us some more background on that. Like why is it so important that we help this specific group of Afghan allies?
Yeah. So NMRG, right? It's a big, long Army acronym for the National Mine Reduction Group. And it's kind of in the name, right? Mine reduction. So reduction in the Army terms mean like, removing mines or more specifically moving IEDs, right? So these guys weren't just like any old interpreters. I'm not saying the interpreters did a lot of work because a lot of those guys were, pretty gangster in their own way. But these guys were, like the interpreters, except providing, English diary translations. They were there specifically to clear IEDs on our behalf, right? Which, as you know, that the number one killer of pretty much anyone in Afghanistan and Iraq were IEDs. So those guys were taking like just extraordinary risk on our behalf to the point where, out of a program strength of about 300 guys at any one time, like 47 of those guys were killed between 2015 and 2021. And they compare that to 22 Green Berets in the same time frame in Afghanistan, So it's kind of like one of those things like, our entire mantra as special forces, right, is to kind of build up partner capacity, liberate the oppressed and all that stuff. So like out of all the guys who really put the most on the line for Americans, it was these guys, like hands down. And
100%.
I don't think there's really, out of all the Afghans, I don't think there's any competition like who really sacrificed the most on our behalf. And that
Absolutely.
is one thing that I want to emphasize too, is for us. These guys weren't Afghan soldiers. They weren't, working for the Afghan government. They were specifically hired. They were hired contractors working for us and us alone, so we kind of owe these guys a little bit.
Yeah. And it's completely different, like you said, from the commandos or Afghan forces. These guys are working in small teams with Green Berets. And when we think of mine reduction, you're thinking of on vehicles. And of course, they do that as well. But intimately, they are with the team and they're leading the way, clearing as you're moving from your infill to your setting in your freaking support by fire, and they're integrated within your stacks and your assault force. Like, these guys are working with our special operations professionals day in and day out. And when the fall of Afghanistan happens, we're leaving them behind. We're letting them just out there flailing in the wind. How did that mission begin?
So, I wasn't as far from the only guy involved in the whole, getting people out of Afghanistan, right? Actually, I was kind of actually late to the party in many ways just because, I was trying to go to med school. I was not trying to get involved in humanitarian crisis. So I was like, I was kind of heads down in the books for, the entire period leading up to the collapse of Afghanistan. But then, like I said, once it did happen, and I was kind of right time, right place to get involved, um, I noticed really quickly that because they had this kind of really close held pseudo secret relationship with the special forces, they weren't well known, right? So
Yeah.
I tried to initially get my guys taken up like another NGO. I tried to like volunteer with like another NGO, getting them in their books and their systems, but it just wasn't resonating, right? They're eligible for the SIV, the Special Immigrant Visa, which is like it's pretty much the golden ticket, right? More or less. But people in these kind of main scale or mainstream NGOs, they just weren't recognizing the energy. They just weren't appreciating what they've done or really knowing their specific details. Because if you work with energy, some of those guys they're really rough around the edges,
Yeah.
Because going back to the old days, these guys were recruited out of the villages, right, out in the boonies, just because they have that kind of that local knowledge. But with that comes some like major issues with their English proficiency and literacy, right? So for a variety of reasons, I kind of recognized that they just weren't getting the love they needed with some of these other NGOs. So it was like, all right, screw it, I'll just make my own, right? So August was a collapse, and November is actually kind of created 1208's predecessor, which is actually called Team 11 at the time. So I don't like I said, I didn't want to get involved in the humanitarian world. So Team 11 was like my team, like my 15 guys, right? But then just once again, right time, right place, all this time in the world to do something. I just kind of started collecting, energy from other teams as well, kind of folding into our database. And then just, linked up with a couple more SF guys, a couple of retired guys, a couple former interpreters. It's kind of coalesced into a little, a larger organization that actually focused on the entirety of the energy program rather than just my team of 15 guys.
Yeah. And what kind of success were you able to have on the ground?
Initially, not a lot. Initially, some guys were pretty successful depending who they knew, because that's kind of what boiled down to a lot in the early days, was like who you knew, like actually in Ishkaya or in the State Department, who could kind of streamline things and get the processes moving quicker. So initially, I did not have a lot of real movement forward. I got helped get a couple of interpreters out in the early days. Yeah. And it wasn't until a full year later that I actually got my first guy from my team out. Since then, we've had more people, so now we have a pretty good system going to the point where actually I really don't do much anymore. I'm kind of just more like right now, like the public face.
Yeah, the public face behind it, trying to bring awareness. Yeah,
public face and the admin guy, which sucks.
The one thing all Green Berets hate.
Yeah, exactly. Admins. So all the talking to CPAs, all the tax stuff, I could do all that stuff, all the subscriptions for web browsers, or internet.
Yeah.
But anyway, like now I don't really do too much. I'm actually, transitioned to more like kind of strategic level, or want to be strategic level stuff with like a startup and all that stuff. Handing over the day-to-day reins to, former interpreter and all that stuff. So yeah, we're having some good successes, all things considered. I'd say our rate of success is definitely higher than the average NGO, but still it's not great. We're still looking for that silver bullet somewhere. It exists, I think. It's just a matter of getting State Department to talk with Defense Department, just because how heavily these energy, if you're going to be, energy, we're actually living on our bases, right? Like literally.
Yep.
In our case, the building next to like 20 meters away, right? So these guys are heavily vetted, all the access to explosives, weapons, everything you could want. So the fact that it's so vetted should be just a matter of like DOD handing the State Department, hey, check out this drive, check out these rosters. Everyone on these rosters should be good to go. Just send them to, Qatar for processing now. That it should, in theory, should be like that, right? There should be that silver bullet. But knowing how our bureaucracies work, that's not the case. So here we are, almost 3 years later.
I can't even imagine what this mechanism looks like and how many friggin' obstacles and blockades are in your way trying to get resources or trying to connect. Because guys are still trying to come here and they're still trying to get out. And people tend to think, and the Taliban are great at propaganda. If you open up your social media, anybody right now will probably get a targeted ad. Like, especially if you're a soft guy, you open up your social media, you get a targeted ad for Afghan tourism.
You see the one with the family from Boston?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, dude.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
Quality
Blows my
parenting at its
mind.
best right there.
Yeah. But our guys are still there. And it's not a happy-go-lucky place. It is not a great place to go on vacation.
And that's the thing. Like you talk to some other people in various circles, whether it's media or NGOs, they're like, oh yeah, it's stable, it's peaceful. But I mean, yeah, I get it. It's stable and it's peaceful because you have a single power in control. There's no longer a civil war. But guess what is also peaceful? Like North Korea, right? Doesn't mean like a stable and peaceful environment does not mean people are prospering, right? Or that people aren't getting snatched out of bed in the middle of the night.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're part of the opposition, it's not really a peaceful, happy place for you. And it's like, fuck, like, how do we right this wrong? There is a huge issue that occurred with all the highlighting of all like the media coverage and the movies and the documentaries that were going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Retrograde, Emmy Award-winning documentary from National Geographic, right? Like going back to the very beginning, like I was telling how I got a couple interpreters out. One of them was actually a cousin of the Retrograde interpreters, and that's how we got him out, was through that relationship. So that's how I got involved with this documentary initially, was the fact that I helped get my interpreter out, right? Fast forward a year, I reached out to one of the producers who I was kind of talking with and helped facilitate this evacuation. Hey, what happened to this documentary? Like, oh, hey, it's coming out in a month. Come visit us for a screening in Washington, D.C., right? So then myself and a couple of other guys go to D.C., go to this initial screening. This is probably 2 or 3 months before the actual public release. Brought some energy who were living in the area along as well. Met with these guys, and it's a great documentary. It's just absolutely soul-crushing, but extraordinarily well-produced.
Yeah.
Has a lot of guys like I personally know in the film, like my former interpreter is in the film, a different interpreter is in the film. Energy that one of my partners, worked with are there as well. Like a lot of crossover. So it's like, all right, let's collaborate. Let's, we'll tag along to your Oscar Award campaign festivities or whatever you want to call it, the screening tour.
Yeah.
Just so like, hey, if someone has a question, like if we want to get involved, like we'll be in the back, like, hey, talk to us. We'll help. We'll show you how to get involved. Right. And because it was a Nat Geo, right? Disney was Nat Geo. You think there's layers upon layers of risk management already involved. Like everyone who's in the film is already safe. You assume that by default because Nat Geo has a very good brand name. It's different now because there's Disney is now there's no real Nat Geo anymore. It's just Disney. Who owns Nat
Bob
Geo.
Iger and Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. So we made some assumption initially that these guys are solid. Everyone in the film is taken care of. So we collaborated with them for a little bit. Took care of a couple people who weren't in the film. They gave us a few names. Like, hey, these are the stragglers. We took care of them. No problem. And it comes to find out, like, it's like they didn't do anything at all to safeguard these people. Like everyone in that film is in serious risk to the point where, a month after it comes out, gets one of our guys detained, tortured for 16 days, ultimately dies because these guys did not blur any faces. And that's a key thing I should have started with initially, is that this documentary did not blur any faces because of creative decisions by the director. So, one thing led to another, and, it just blows up. We got, this major Washington Post article came out in May, got the documentary taken down, all this stuff. It's still ongoing, right? There were 9 guys, as of the time of the publishing of the article, 9 guys still in Afghanistan because of this documentary, including the widow of the guy who was killed. Still haven't gotten Disney to do anything about it, which is pretty amazing considering that, this producer who I was originally in touch with, who was working with Retrograde, she was the one who, like, literally on text message ever saying, oh yeah, Disney helped get 300 families out of Afghanistan during the collapse. It's like, all right, guys, like, where's the treatment for our guys? These guys are shown collaborating actively with the U.S. Army Special Forces, right? They help, at the same time, they're helping get out the extras and the technicians, all these guys from in the background of other films. So it's like, you'll help out these 300 guys. What about our 9 remaining guys? And our 9 remaining guys does not include the Afghan commandos, the Afghan government officials. All in all, you expand up to like the family, because these Afghan family connections, you're talking like 200 people these guys put at risk at least. So it's pretty egregious exploitation of these really persecuted individuals.
Dude, I can't even imagine the level, not just of anger and frustration and sheer just violent rage you must have been dealing early on with this. But how do you stay the course, and how do you continue when the victories are so small and few apart? Like, how do you stay on?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of heavy metal and walks on the beach, man. Yeah, I mean, like, because that's the thing too. Like like I said, Dave, being my partner, Tolboy, who's mentioned that article quite a bit. He kind of elevated his concerns initially, pretty extensively too, to the point where we have the retrograde producer on voice message, on text, expressing her direct concerns about the guys involved. So like anything in the media recently about them, like, oh, we were aware of the concerns and met our threshold anyway. Like, it's complete fabrication, right? So Dave voices concerns initially. I kind of, once again, because I'm like the public facing side, I have to kind of balance our assets
Yeah.
available. Because like on one hand, like Afghanistan's forgotten conflict essentially. Everyone who's at risk right now is second thought, right? Because
Oh yeah.
first Ukraine took away all the oxygen, then Gaza. So like Afghanistan's like lower tier in terms of global crises. So like on one hand, we're trying to balance the assets we have, which is collaborating with this Emmy award-winning documentary. And then two, we're trying to do the right thing for our guys, right? So you kind of have to square the two. You have to kind of reconcile a pragmatic approach versus doing the right fucking thing,
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the source of my mental stress right there. Is like, I'm trying not to blow you guys up over this. You guys need to do the right thing. And we spent a long time trying to make those guys do the right thing, until initially, like, all right, you guys aren't going to do it. We're just going to take things under our own hands. So that was by far the most stressful part. Just, like, you guys kind of played me for Trump for a while. Kind of in many ways, I think the main reason they wanted us because, we were their easy button, right? They, those guys I mentioned who we helped out with, if they had a problem, all right, yeah, fine. We'll spend our time and energy and complete lack of resources other than our own blood, sweat, and tears. And we'll take care of your problems for you. And with the expectation that they would do something, and they didn't at any stage. And then, initially just found, all right, I got the opportunity to participate in a congressional roundtable. That's where I kind of put everything on the table. Just because once you put in Congress, man, that's part of the record. Like, it's like, all right, come at me, bro. Like, put on the congressional record, try something. And the Washington Post picked up on that. Now here we are.
What was that experience like? Like,
So,
it's one thing to see it
testimony
on like C-SPAN and see like watching Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann do the same thing. It's one thing to see your Green Beret brothers up there. What was it like in that seat facing those assholes?
So ours wasn't that big of a deal because there's two tiers, right? You have a congressional hearing or testimony, right? And you have like a hearing, or sorry, a roundtable. A roundtable is just pretty much informal, right? So it's just, 6 panelists and a couple of congressional members who, depending on what they had, they'd rotate in and out because they had to go vote on something. Yeah. So actually very much way more low key than, hand on the Bible kind of swearing stuff. So
yeah.
Definitely a lot of prep into it because you don't want to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Because even in those stages, as low scale or as small scale as it was, like, you say the wrong thing, it's still gonna blow up.
Yeah.
And you don't want to give anyone the wrong ammunition, right? Because you have to play this fine line where you want people to do the right thing, but at the same time, you don't want to say something that could be used as ammunition. Because let's be honest, that entire roundtable was like, they're all veterans, and it was like 8 Republicans, 1 Democrat. So it's partisan by default, which fine, it served our own ends. But you have to kind of, play that nasty political game in a way, which is not, I don't know, it's not something I really built for, but you have to, it's the rules, rules are rules. You got to play it.
Yeah. It's never easy having to go there and in front of anybody and sort of like plea or give your side of the story, especially when it feels like it's not going to make a difference. Like, how do you guys continue this mission? Like, how do you guys rally around each other and continue to every day, day by day, try to move that ball just a few inches further?
I don't know anymore. Like, I don't know. It's attrition. like everyone has their own coping mechanisms at some point. So Dave just goes off and travels. Like it irritates the shit out of me sometimes because like remember I tried to get Dave on, last because we tried to like a year ago. I tried to get Dave on, but he's off traveling again, so I'm just doing it myself now. He copes by traveling, just kind of unplugging. I cope a completely opposite way. I should get more involved, but like like kind of like an academic pursuit. Like I did one master program through Georgia. I'm doing another one in Oxford right now.
Shit.
It's all focused on what I'm doing now, but like in a different sense. I'm kind of taking what I'm doing now, but like putting a different spin on things. For example, like right now, I just picked a fight with Disney. Now my next thing is going to pick a fight with the United Nations. I mean that's putting things way too ambitiously, right? But
I don't know, man. You're Green Beret. I say go for broke. So is being a doctor no longer part of?
Oh no, that's ship sailed. If you can't, I like chasing shiny objects too much, and you can't do that in med school, right? You're 4 years of medical school, and you have 3 to 5 years of residency. So
yeah,
like my coping mechanism, like pretty much like I turn it like an academic pursuit. So like one thing I noticed with our just our community, right? I would say the NGO community, the SF community. You have all these small scale NGOs, like like 12-Way, right? We popped up for to serve the energy of others. Small scale NGO popped up for lawyers, another one for like the SMW pilots. And we're able to like kind of, in many ways, we are able to kind of punch above our weight class, right?
Yeah.
So like I've tweaked this little academic pursuit where we have all these small scale NGOs who are kind of, because they're so small and so decentralized, we can operate underneath the Taliban in many ways. It's straight up like, it's many ways straight up like UW, right? Like these small compartmentalized cells who can actively subvert, maybe not subvert's the right word, but we can kind of operate below the threshold of not violence, but threshold of notice of the local government. Kind of, we can set up girl schools here. We can set up an exfil mechanism over here. Now, how do you actually kind of create something where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, right? So, like basically, that's my academic pursuit: is take all these small scale NGOs, create some kind of mechanism that's actually coordinated, right? Decentralized but coordinated. So you can actually make stuff happen, right? Because the big NGOs like the UN and stuff, right? They're all cut off, very easily cut off because they're all highly centralized, right? So you cut off their supply mechanisms or whatever, or just put certain restrictions on them. You're putting them at like 50% capacity, or you're taking like half their aid budget, right? And that's the thing with Afghanistan right now. Like $40 million a week is going there, but like most of it's going into like Taliban control, right? But here's the thing: you have to make this balance too, because on the UN side, like 25% of their mission, or completing 25% of mission, is better than completing 0%, because so they have to operate within the Taliban control measures, or else you're gonna have millions of people starve. So like my entire theory with the way I kind of keep my brain engaged is what if you can create this mechanism, tech-based mechanism where everything is decentralized, and it's like Hydra approach, right? That you can't. There's no one interdiction point to chop everything off. If you can find the coordinating piece, that's the start. Is building that coordinating piece to get stuff moving again.
Yeah, that's perfectly along the lines of being a Green Beret, and that works to your advantage. But the other thing that how do you? Because you're still and are you 19th or 20th group?
19th.
19th. How do you put the uniform back on and go to drill and deal with those two polar opposite ideals of like, hey, like I believe in my mission. I'm a Green Beret, and fuck, like we let down our guys. Like at any point, do you feel like it conflicts? Like, because I know for a lot of us when it was happening, I was just like, how the fuck do we ever look at another partner force in the face and talk with them with any sort of credibility?
Especially the retrograde thing too, man. That was done with authorization. USASOC, USAFIC.
Yep.
SOCOM. Like, so you had the highest levels of SF, and you probably read the article too, like who gave kind of a non-answer. The highest levels of SF selling out a partner force for a recruiting video, essentially.
Yep.
Like, and that's one thing that he hasn't really talked about a lot. in any real extent yet, but like, come on, man. Like, you have General Fran Burdett, who's now retired from USASOC, approving this. He's a former first group commander right before I got to first group.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, where's USASOC right now? Where's First SFC? Like, we are the premier partner force capacity or partner capacity built, whatever we want to call it,
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting the blood's getting up right now. We just think we are the premier force for building partner capacity, or however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
Our entire thing is to operate with and through our partners. And where are the higher levels right now? Where are the bosses? Why haven't they said anything about this? Why are they not? Why aren't they talking to the State Department? Hey, get our guys out. It's not many guys. It's 180 families, right? So you're talking like 930 Afghans in total out of out of a total of like 150,000 applicants, not just families, right? So you're talking like 800 something thousand people. So we're talking less than 1% is our asking. Why can't the bosses just give us that?
And it is extremely frustrating when you hear some of the inside details of some of the meetings that occurred during the fall, and how they were, General Milley was completely okay with civilians and retired soft professionals taking the lead in trying to get their brothers, their Afghan partners out of the country. And it's, to me, the other thing that really sticks and really just, it's like a dagger. It's the fact that if we fail in Afghanistan, you've been there, you've briefed your mission and gone off, gotten in the back of a bird and done your job. If at any moment you're found to have, been a failure of, whether it's negligent or did something, your ass is on the line. You're going to be held accountable for what you failed to do. But we don't do that with any of our senior officials. And that just doesn't sit right with so many of us. And I'm still waiting for somebody to at least do something, because fuck, Milley got to walk his fat ass right out of office and not be held accountable for any of the things that he failed to do. And that, to me, is one of the most horrible fucking things that we can do for the legacy of Green Berets. The fact that you have individuals that didn't uphold the standard, that didn't do anything in a moment where they could have done something, and then just quietly walk off into retirement. And it's a hard thing for our generation of Green Berets to live with. And then to continue to serve and mentor and develop and coach other Green Berets and still have that positive mindset and still not, and I get it. You got to be able to fight and not come across as just this negative, burnt out NCO or officer, but how do you deal with it?
Yeah. I don't know about that one. Like, 'cause I am definitely that negative, burnt out NCO right now. Because actually, you asked about my future. I got to figure out my future pretty much in the next few days, actually, because I left active duty August of 3 years ago. So you get 3 years of stabilization. We transition from active duty to the Guard, and that 3 years of stabilization is pretty much up now. Technically, if I don't extend, I need to extend for a multitude of reasons, mainly being the fact that I need to maintain my clearance so I can actually, if we find that silver bullet from the NMRG, right, I have to be able to, hey, hand over whatever I need to hand over from, DOD to the State Department, just be there to kind of kick someone's ass to keep things going. But I don't, that's one thing, like the accountability, like, I don't know. Like, I do care, but at the same time, I also don't, because I got to focus on getting stuff done now. So maybe there's some absolution for those guys if they actually do something now, but you're seeing the effects of it day to day. I don't know how things are in the other groups, but like talking to guys at first, there's an exodus going on right now. Like everybody I know is pretty much on their way out, or they know someone who's going out, and like, you're having, I'm not sure if it's quite there yet, but they're like almost at the verge of like shuttering the entire teams, going down like 5 companies, or shutting down, maybe shutting down entire companies. I'm not sure.
I've heard the same thing, the exodus of the soft professional. And you said it, when you're the premier force that is chosen to build partner nation capacity, to build teams in these countries where you have, we saw it with the green on blues. Like if you don't build strong relationships with your partner force, that is a huge weak point. And going into, and it goes now to every AOR, whether it's Latin America or Southeast Asia, like people have seen this. Everybody saw the fall of Afghanistan. So how do you save face when you're training with your partner nation? That's a thing that our force is going to have to address from here on out. The precedent has been made time and time again now. We walk away and we leave our guys behind. It's a horrible thing to try to reconcile and to put it on our NCO's back, because as always, our SF regiment lives and dies with the NCO Corps. How are we going to empower our NCOs to go there and forge these bonds and be able to continue doing their mission when our partner forces in every nation now know that, hey, when things get tough, these dudes are going to cut out and they're not going to be here for us. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
dude.
The entire idea, like, we try and instill, in many ways, we try to make them in our own image, right? Instill within the same kind of values that we kind of drive us. But, they see those images of people trying to, climb onto those C-17. So, in the back of mind, they're going to know, like, hey, end of the day, like, I have to have my exit strategy, right? I have to look out for myself. They're not going to have that kind of selflessness that you want. So, that the exit strategy could, very well be, compromising these SF guys I'm partnered with, right? Because they're not going to look after me, or maybe these individuals might look after me, but you can be damn sure their bosses aren't.
Yeah.
No. Like I think on the individual level, I think we're pretty good about building rapport. Like one time in Afghanistan, I remember being on the range with Afghan commandos. And there's like a unit of regular ANA over there, and they kind of like, hey guys, come this side of the vehicle, stay away from the regular ANA. They're looking after us. I just don't know if you'll start seeing that in the future. And
looking at your own career, looking at what's next, I mean, you can only chase so many higher education goals.
Yeah.
When you look at 1208 and where it's going to and how it's growing, do you see it morphing into something bigger, or is it almost more beneficial, just like you were talking earlier, just kind of stay smaller? You're able to operate underneath the radar.
I think 12.8's definitely staying small. Dave and I are both definitely burnt out. We're done. We have a really solid interpreter. He worked the Czech SOAT. I'm not sure if you ever worked with him. Awesome guy. He's like up in the Seattle area. We have enough funding to keep him going. As long as we keep Shawan going, we're good. Just because we're pretty much in a holding pattern for the indefinite future, which sucks. No one wants to be just kicking the can down the road forever. So on my end, I'll just be on standby, trying to kind of facilitate these intermediate to higher level engagements. If we can get something going with Pentagon, I'm talking to a policy guy in the Pentagon who's actually pretty helpful guy. Trying to facilitate exactly what I'm talking about, trying to touch those tips, so to speak. So I'll be on hand for that. But like 12.8 itself, the idea is that it's limited in shelf life, right? Like we have and like I said, at one point, NRG program was like 300 dudes or 300 families. So we have no real reason to keep ourselves going beyond that. One really terrible part about this job is like, our email gets flooded all the time, but it's usually by Afghans who don't, have any relationships. So it's like, bro, I'm sorry. Like, I don't, like, to the point where like, I don't have the bandwidth to even respond. Like I used to respond just trying to be a nice guy, but now it's just like, sorry, guy, I can't help you.
Dude, you only have so much bandwidth to it. And it's not a simple email. It's emotionally draining seeing everybody cry out for help and resources. And you're not the entirety of the U.S. government. You're just Green Berets trying, just trying to make a small amount of impact. And I think that so many, if we look across our regiment from retired guys to guys that are in and served during Afghanistan, everybody has a story of that text message, WhatsApp message, signal message in the middle of the night of a friend in need, desperate for some sort of help. And it's like, what the fuck do we do? What the fuck do we do?
I remember that very distinctly because like, like I said, I was heads down early on just because of the whole med school thing. But then like August 14th, August 14th, like my best friend's wedding, right? So like I wake
Yeah.
up literally the 15th, like hungover, and it's just like, what the like, like big, like the biggest possible font across New York Times or CNN or whatever website, the cobble's falling, like within like probably 15 minutes later, the first text comes in. So it's like you don't know. I still don't know what to do for the most part. Like I'm still flying. I'm not a humanitarian by trade. Right? I don't know what I'm doing. Like I have a few good connections. I know a few good tricks, but like by and large, I still know what I'm doing. Certainly didn't know what I was doing then. So like, yeah, the minute I try to pivot from something other than NRG, like, NRG are going to suffer, right? So like I only have enough time and space and, emotional investment to focus on those guys. So I would love to see 1208 go away sooner rather than later, but just, got to keep it going for the meantime.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mission that has to stay for a little while longer, but if we want to help out, how can people get involved? How can we provide like resources or monetary support? Like how can people get involved with 1208 to help you guys out?
I mean, 1208.org, or sorry, 1208foundation.org is our website, right? So I make sure to have all our donate buttons very prominent. More specifically, there's one initiative that I've actually criticized in the past, but actually it's turned out to be somewhat productive. It's called the Welcome Corps, and you can actually sponsor individual families.
Oh, no shit.
So it's one thing I'm trying to hit up with some of these SF related NGOs, like the SFA, for example, right? There's certain groups are actually already sponsoring Afghans, but one thing I'd like to approach more in the future is try to coordinate something with these guys. We can actually do like a buy name sponsor of some of our guys who are actually ready to travel right now and who are already approved. So we have some like 75 families ready to go. It's just going through the State Department process is just
holy shit,
crazy.
75, that's huge.
Yeah, 75 families, so it's not bad. The only issue is because I don't know why they have these stipulations, but it's a $5,000 sponsorship fee you have to form a group of 5 people and pony up $5,000 for yourselves. There are reimbursement policies. I'm not sure. Some of them are expired for like veteran groups. So if you can get groups of 5 together, sponsor guys, we can move people that way. Once again, it becomes an issue with the resourcing thing, right? Because people don't necessarily have that kind of money just ready to go.
Yeah.
So Welcome Corps is a good one. But because it is by name sponsorship, it's best to talk with us first so that we can actually provide the name in advance. Then any kind of funding, finance, all that stuff, we can always use volunteers. Volunteers are kind of hit and miss because it's not, the jumping in point is very, it's not easy to get involved in this kind of stuff. But like, it's always, someone make merchandise, all stuff like that. There's always volunteers like that. But we're actually doing fairly solid right now, all things considered. But yeah, number one's finance. Number 2 would be the Welcome Corps, then political connections after that.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll be sure to put that in the episode description so that you can do your part and help out our allies. It's been sort of a lot of heavy discussions, Thomas. Is there at least one happy ending good story you can share with us from your time with 1208?
Oh man, a happy 1208 story. I don't know, man.
I know. This is a heavy subject. I apologize, but we have to talk about it. But is there at least one happy ending that you've had so far?
I don't know. Like the academic stuff is pretty interesting, actually. And I think there is one thing that I'm developing right now. Like I said, I have a spinoff, right? So, 1208 is a nonprofit, the spinoff, which is not technically affiliated with 1208 because you can't have a for-profit spin out from a nonprofit, legal stuff. It's called Reblue, right? So I don't know if you've heard that term in infantry days or something like that. Like I only heard it once, but it stuck with me for some reason. Like my Iraq infantry days, but like Reblue, like you're bluing your rifle, like that protective coating, rebluing, you refinish your rifle. But like some reason, some NCO I knew back in the day, like rebluing would be like, to refurbish or to refinish or like repurpose. Yourself. So like we need a reblue training, so you're fresh, you're ready to go again. And the idea of reblue is that we're going to kind of take what's already existing in some of these just rough around the edges countries like Afghanistan, Somalia, Myanmar, and kind of create a bridge between Western investment and some of these informal economies. So So specifically, right, it's a tech company essentially. It's tech meets humanitarian operations. So essentially, creating like this tech platform that kind of converts tech into, like, you're talking like 8th century financing. So I don't know if you're like familiar with Hawala at all.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So for anyone who's not familiar, Hawala is basically like an Islamic-based remittance program where, just pretty much you're taking on faith alone or trusting your partner that, you're going to forward some money essentially, right? So like it's an 8th century banking system, but obviously that scares the shit out of any kind of Western investors, right?
Because boy, does it work. It does work.
It works because it was also major terrorism and money laundering back there in the past. But the thing is, like, when you look at places like Afghanistan and Somalia, Yemen, Iraq, even places, in South America, sorry, not South America, God, South Asia, they have this high reliance on it, but there's no other economic systems for them, right? Other than Walla. So you're kind of creating this bottleneck where the West is too scared to get involved because they're scared of getting burnt either by regulation or just by theft. And so aid's just not going anywhere. You're at a stagnant point right now, like we're in Afghanistan, right? 75% of that economy is classified as informal, right? Non-regulated, which is worse in the world by like 10%. Like next is 65% informal, as Gabon, and like after that's like Nigeria, like 60%. So like far and away the most dire economic straits that you could imagine. It's all because the West doesn't want to get involved. And you have Taliban banks or you have Hawala. Neither of them are great. Yep. But like I said earlier, like because we have these connections in Afghanistan, we've developed these really great, almost rat lines in a way, in terms of like, these logistic capacities. What if we just created why don't we just like make this halfway point instead of bringing, Afghans to a Western system, we bring a Western system to the Afghans. Yeah. So essentially, all you have to do, you find the Hawala, some Hawala door as Saraf, right? Saraf is like the broker. Find a broker in Dubai and a broker in Afghanistan, vet the shit out of them. So you find the guys who are the really good ones, the best possible ones in the entire country, attach like a blockchain tracking platform, right? So I'm not a tech guy, right? But like blockchain, it's the best tech tracking platform right now, or best tracking technology. So you get this tech tracking platform that, can track every single transaction. But the problem with the transactions is that they're not on Swift or they're not on any kind of regulated system. So you need a human component, right? So essentially you're just slapping on this human-based vetting system onto this informal economy and running just a digital pipeline through it, So essentially it's like a financial VPN, right? So you're taking this really dirty, archaic, informal economic system and creating a nice little clean, safe space through it where you can get Western investment, just because we know the guys on the back end. Because guess what? U.S. was in Afghanistan for 20 years. We know
some people.
We know a lot of people. We know a shit ton of people there. So why don't we actually take the best of them and, hook them up with the tech that they need to be productive and, make stuff happen that way.
Hell yeah.
So I'm sorry, there's no real good elevator pitch for it because it's a very ambitious idea. No one's, as far as I can tell,
makes sense to me, and it's worked before. I mean, we've relied on it to get food, so it should, in theory, it should work.
I mean, it's just you give them an app so you're logging all the steps along the way. And humans vet it. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Blockchain will make it so you can't fake the numbers that way. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Some people might be upset because all those gravel contracts would go away that way, but
you said it.
Yeah, I said the quiet part out loud, didn't I?
Don't fuck this up for me, my man. Plenty of people came back with a good amount of money. All you got to remember is save the receipts.
Yeah, I just put a target on my back from a whole bunch of like use a sock logistics people.
They were in on it too. Thomas, thank you for being here, man. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Again, the name of the organization is 1208 Foundation. Please go hook them up. Try to send some resources their way. But man, from all of us, dude, thank you for what you're doing. You and your partner have taken on the workload that so many other individuals should have been doing for us. And I can't thank you enough for being willing to do this and keeping our partners in the forefront of so many other people's minds. And I can't wait for more of them to get home. So again, thank you for what you're doing, man. It's it's not lost on any of us that you're working your ass off to make this happen on behalf of so many teams and so many Green Berets that feel so passionate for getting our guys back. And I hope more resources come up, and I hope more people get involved because, dude, we need to get them home. We need them here in the States. They were there for us when we needed them, and damn it, we need to be there for them. So thank you, brother.
I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. We'll see y'all next time. Till then, take care.